Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome back to my channel. Now that it's April, I've seen lots of people doing Q1 wrap-ups and I didn't think I was going to be too bothered about doing a Q1 wrap-up, and then I saw on like my TikTok memories, because apparently that's a thing, that I did make a Q1 wrap-up this time last year. So I thought I would compare my Q1 stats from 2023 to my Q1 stats from 2024. Most of these stats I think came from Storygraph. I've got a few additional stats that come from my own spreadsheet, and I've got another spreadsheet that I'm using at the moment, but let's compare.
Hello, Editing Sophie just jumping in to say two things. One, I filmed this a few weeks ago, so I appreciate that it is now the very end of April, so I've kind of missed the boat for making a Q1 stats video, but I'd filmed it and I was pleased with what I'd filmed, so I thought I'd edit it and upload it, even though it's later than I intended it to be. And the second thing, I fully intended to edit this as I filmed it, so I intended to either do a screen recording or screen grabs from Storygraph, but I didn't do that. So now my Storygraph is vastly out of date because I have read 6 or 7 more books in April. I've had a really good April, so make sure you're subscribed or whatever to watch my wrap up whenever I make that. That feels icky to say, but whatever. So I'll try and include some screenshots where I can, but there's some screenshots that are just going to be so wildly incorrect in terms of data now, so I might not include screenshots for all of it, but that's why. So if this video doesn't quite make sense, it's because I'm late, but I'm determined to upload it anyway. Thanks!
Hello, my name's Sophie and welcome to my first quarter reading statistics for 2023. I'll mostly be using statistics from Storygraph, but I also have some of my own interesting statistics.
First off, can I just point out that this video is also filmed in this room. It was before we moved all of the bookcases in here and I had that map on the wall behind me, but slightly poignant to think I'm sat in exactly the same position as I was last year. Funny. Also that I think my statistics were interesting. Big up me, I guess.
Starting off with the data at the top of the page, we have my 2022 reading goal, which I set at 42 books. As of yesterday, I have read 18 books, which puts me 7 books ahead of where I need to be on track with my goal.
Yeah, so this year is a very different story. I don't know how I read so much last year. It's really baffling to me how I was reading so much, because I suppose my mental health was probably a bit better, but I really don't know. I don't remember how I read so much, but I did. This year my reading goal is at 52 books, because last year I did set my goal at 42, but I read 80 books total, and I was like, okay, we can up a bit from 42, and I thought 52, one a week, that seems achievable. Currently I have read, well, in Q1 I read 12 books? Yeah, I read 12 books. I've read a book since then, so it says 13, but even with that I have 1 book until I'm back on track, so I am 1 book behind schedule compared to being 7 books ahead of schedule last year. This video is going to be very humbling for me.
And at this rate I will hit my reading goal by August, but now that I've said that, I will probably end up in a reading slump and not read for 6 months. Moving on.
Yeah, fun fact, I hit my reading goal last year at the end of June. I was appropriately hesitant but also incorrect, because I read the amount of books to hit my reading goal sooner.
The pace of the books I'm reading are predominantly medium pace, which is good for me because too fast and I can't keep up, and too slow and I get bored.
The pace of the books that I've read so far this year have been, again, predominantly medium paced at 62%, and then fast paced books at 38%. We've not got room for slow books this year. Apparently I had a tiny segment for slow books last year, but no slow books so far this year. But also, at this point last year I had read 18 books and I've only read 12 this year, so there was more to work with last year.
Fiction versus non-fiction. I'm clearly doing not very well at reading non-fiction this year, but reading is a hobby that I do for enjoyment, so forcing myself to read non-fiction when I don't really want to read non-fiction doesn't sound like fun. So here is my pink fiction circle.
Similar to last year, we have another pink fiction circle. I'm less against non-fiction now. I did read some more non-fiction later in this year and really enjoyed it. There was a few books that made it into my top 10 5-stars of the year that were non-fiction, and I have a few non-fiction books on my 24 in 2024 list which I will be reading. I'm determined, before the end of the year. So I'm definitely more open to non-fiction now, but I think I'm quite selective with what I read, because I think non-fiction is very hit or miss. I think, especially for most of us that read fiction, you have to be really interested to enjoy a non-fiction book. But who knows, maybe I just haven't read enough non-fiction yet and I need to figure out more about what I like about non-fiction.
Next we have the breakdown of genres. My top 3 genres are young adult, romance and fantasy, because I kind of accidentally read a lot of fantasy this year, but I'm not complaining about it. However, I would dispute that I don't think young adult is a genre. I think it's an audience category, much like adult or middle grade.
Yeah, I stand by what I say about young adult. I'm very particular in my own book journal in that I have an audience category, because I don't think YA is a genre. I think it's an audience category, in the same way that you can have an adult an adult audience category, or middle grade, or children's. But then, to be fair, looking at my genres for this year, children's and middle grade are also on there, but why isn't adult on there? If you're going to have YA, children's and middle grade, you should have adult as well. So it's more about inconsistency for me. But my top 3 genres this year are, even without including audience categories, are fantasy, romance and mystery. Definitely getting back into my fantasy era. I've read 7 fantasy books, 6 romance books, though I imagine there's crossover there, 3 mystery books, which I think includes the famous 5 books, so that makes sense. And then yeah, we have the children's, the young adult, bit of historical. I'm surprised contemporary's so low. Not surprised, because I haven't read a lot of contemporary this year, but normally I would have read more contemporary. I think contemporary romance and fantasy romance are definitely my top 2 favourite genres generally, so yeah, definitely need to get some more contemporary in there.
And here is a nice graph of the numbers, pages and minutes I've spent reading per month. And at the bottom here we have my average star ratings. I have not rated a book lower than 3 stars this year, which is quite nice that I've not read anything that abysmal.
First off, the nice graph the nice graph of how many books, pages and minutes I've read so far this year. Obviously discounting April, because this is meant to be a Q1 video, but I didn't film it fast enough. We've been a bit up and down. Well, yeah, it's weird, because you look at January, I read 5 books, 1,233 pages and listened to 969 minutes. Audiobooks, I kind of ignore that line because I co-read a lot, so I count it on Storygraph as a physical read or an ebook read. You can't count 2 books towards 1 book. If I list them both on Storygraph, it would count as reading 2 books, and obviously that's not accurate. I co-read a lot, but I don't account for those minutes on Storygraph, so that is kind of irrelevant to me. But you can see that the books I read, 5 in January, 4 in February and 3 in March, slowly going down, but the page numbers went up. So even though I finished less books in February, I read more pages, and then I finished even less books in March, but I only read slightly fewer pages. I think that's what's interesting, at least in setting book number goals, because you can see from the pages that even though I finished less books, I was actually reading more, if not the same. So maybe we should all set pages goals rather than book goals. That's the graph of this year so far. And in terms of my star ratings, I have definitely rated books less than 3 stars this year. I only just found my first 5-star, and that wasn't even in Q1, that was the beginning of Q2 in April. So as of Q1, I have read 4 4-star books, 5 3-star books, 2 2-star books and a 1-star book. It took me probably more than half the year last year to find my first 1-star book rating, and I found this 1-star rating in January, in the first month of the year. It's not been as good a reading year in terms of reading books I've enjoyed. I think there's a part of me that doesn't see reading a quote-unquote bad book, or a book that I didn't enjoy, as a bad thing, because at least then I've read it, I've got it off my physical TBR, and then I can unhaul it. I have a nice little collection of books that I'm going to unhaul at some point. Whether I'm going to sell them or donate them, I'm not sure. It's a book that comes off the TBR, and it's a book that I don't have to keep in my collection. So even though I don't necessarily enjoy reading it, I'm glad I've read it so that I can get rid of it without wondering whether I would have enjoyed it.
My average rating so far this year is 3.83 stars, so pretty good actually.
Oh yeah, my average rating is 3.15. So not as good as last year, but still not awful. I think above 3 is good for me. If it dips below 3, I need to start reevaluating what I'm reading.
I have a reading tracker spreadsheet that I've made myself. One thing it has that Storygraph doesn't have is the number of days it took me to finish a book. So the longest it's taken me to finish a book this year is 38 days, which was the audiobook of the Bride Test, and the shortest one I had was 2 days for The Innocent Story by Nikki Singer. Mildly interesting tidbit of information, depending on your definition of interesting.
Mildly interesting is putting it nicely. Again, going to my own spreadsheet, the book that I've finished that took me the longest to read so far this year is Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn, which took me 31 days. I actually started this on the 10th of December 23, and it took me to the 9th of January to finish it. And the shortest book I read this year was Galatea by Madeline Miller, which is, I have to hand actually. It's a teeny tiny little novella that I started with just to kind of get my reading goal off the bat at the beginning of this year. So one day, maybe an hour it took me to read this, but other than that, the book that I've read the most quickly is the first Famous 5 book, which took me 4 days. Which makes sense because it's a children's book. So
what I also have in my spreadsheet is a TBR tracker where I have a list of every unread book I had in my collection as of the 1st of January 2023, and that gives me the data for my remaining unread TBR. So my total unread books on January 1st 2023 was 312. The total books I've bought so far in 2023 is 32. Out of the 18 total books I've read this year, 13 of them came from my backlog, meaning either the TBR Reads or the Wedding Library, which means I have a total remaining backlog of 331 books, which is 19 books more than when I started at the beginning of the year.
This is where it gets depressing, because my total unread books on the 1st of January 2024 was 421, which is over 100 books more than the 1st of January 2023. The total unread, right, I've further broken up these categories, so I have total unread bought and total unread gifted, because to me those are different. Gifted not in the YouTubey influencer sense that they were sent by a publisher or whatever, gifted in the sense that either my mum or my husband bought them for me. So I've bought 25 books myself, 4 books have been bought for me, and even then I know that data is out of date because on my book buying spreadsheet I have bought 36 books this year. Oh yeah, no, I know where the discrepancy is, because these are unread books. So there are some books that I've bought that have been special editions of books that I already own or have already read. So there's 29 unread books, 36 total new books bought. According to this spreadsheet, I'm convinced that this spreadsheet is out of date and I want to make a new one, but that's going to take me ages, so I've not done it yet. Either way, moving on. My total backlog read so far this year is 9 books from either my TBR Reads or the Wedding Library, and then my physical reads is 11, and then my total reads is 13. Again, including for that one book that I read at the beginning of April. So it's not quite Q1, it's Q1 and a bit. Yeah, so there's 9 books that were either from the TBR or the Wedding Library. 11 books includes the 2 new releases that I've bought, and then 13 includes 2 books that I read on Kindle Unlimited / on my Kindle generally, so they weren't part of my physical collection at all. And then according to this, which I'm convinced is not right because I feel like it's more than that, my remaining backlog is 439 books, which is 18 books more than my total unread from the beginning of the year, which are abysmal statistics. They are horrendous. I know they're really bad. There's just so many good books out there and I can't resist them. I'm just terrible. I know it's really bad, and I know I don't read fast enough to justify buying or having this many books, but I'm doing my best, and honestly that's all anyone can ask of me. Let's just see what I have to say in the last 11 seconds of this video.
Hence the book buying ban. I don't know if this is interesting for anyone else but me, but I think I love a good pie chart. And I have nothing more to say on that.
Honestly, same. Honestly, same. So that's a look at my Q1. Basically, I'm not doing as well as last year, except in book buying, where I've bought more and my physical TBR is out of hand. But I have decided that I'm going to go on a book buying ban, at least until when I go to Comic-Con next month. There's at least 5 to 6 weeks where I'm just not going to buy any books. I'm not going to let myself go into a bookshop. I'm not going to let myself go into charity shops, because I know I don't have the strength to resist, and I have so many books I need to read. So, going to be focusing on those. Those are my Q1 statistics. I don't know if this is interesting to anyone else but me, but I love statistics. So if this is boring, let me know. If you're interested in this, let me know. Maybe I'll do a Q2 wrap up as well. God knows where we'll be by summer. June last year was when I met my reading goal for the year, and I don't think I'll be doing that this year, especially because I went on my honeymoon last May, so I had 2 weeks of basically doing nothing but reading. So I made a big dent in my reading goal on that holiday, and I don't have that equivalent holiday planned for this year, but we'll see where we get to. But as I said, reading is a hobby and I'm meant to be doing it for fun. We're not here for the statistics are just interesting. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you're reading in the comments down below. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you later for another bookish video. Bye!